What would you do if the people closest to you betrayed you, lied about you, and destroyed your life, yet years later depended on you to survive? Joseph was the 11th son of a man named Jacob. Out of all his sons, Jacob loved Joseph the most because Joseph was born to him in his old age. Jacob even gave Joseph a special coat made of many colors, something that made his brothers jealous. Every time they saw Joseph wearing that coat, hatred grew in their hearts. But things became worse when Joseph began sharing strange dreams. One day, Joseph said to his brothers, "Listen to this dream I had. We were tying bundles of grain in the field, and suddenly my bundle stood upright, while all your bundles bowed down to mine." His brothers became angry. "So you think you will rule over us someday?" But Joseph had another dream. This time he said, "I saw the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing down to me." From that moment, Joseph's brothers hated him even more. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers who were taking care of sheep far away. As Joseph approached them wearing his colorful robe, his brothers began plotting against him. "Here comes the dreamer," they mocked. "Let's kill him and throw him into a pit." But one brother named Reuben stopped them from killing Joseph. Instead, they stripped Joseph of his robe and threw him into an empty pit. Joseph cried and begged them for mercy, but they ignored him. Then some traders traveling to Egypt passed by. Judah, one of the brothers, suggested, "Why kill him when we can sell him?" So they sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver. Joseph was taken away like a slave, while his brothers returned home pretending nothing happened. To cover their crime, they dipped Joseph's robe in animal blood and showed it to their father. Jacob immediately believed Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. He cried deeply for his son. Meanwhile, Joseph arrived in Egypt as a slave. Joseph was bought by an Egyptian officer named Potiphar. Even though Joseph was a slave, God was with him. Everything Joseph did prospered. Potiphar trusted Joseph so much that he placed him in charge of his entire household. But trouble came again. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph. Day after day she pressured him, but Joseph refused because he wanted to honor God. One day she grabbed his clothes while trying to tempt him. Joseph escaped, leaving his garment behind. Angry and embarrassed, she lied and accused Joseph of trying to attack her. Potiphar became furious. Joseph was thrown into prison for a crime he never committed. Again, Joseph suffered for doing the right thing. But even inside prison, God was still with Joseph. The prison guard noticed Joseph's wisdom and eventually placed him in charge of the other prisoners. One night, two prisoners, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, both had troubling dreams. Joseph interpreted the dreams through God's wisdom. The cupbearer would be restored to Pharaoh. The baker would die. Exactly as Joseph said, it happened. Before the cupbearer left prison, Joseph begged him, "Please remember me before Pharaoh." But after returning to Pharaoh, the cupbearer forgot Joseph for 2 whole years. Joseph remained in prison, forgotten by people, but not forgotten by God. Then, Pharaoh himself had disturbing dreams no one could explain. In one dream, 7 healthy cows were eaten by 7 thin cows. In another dream, 7 healthy grains were swallowed by 7 dry grains. Suddenly, the cupbearer remembered Joseph. Joseph was quickly brought before Pharaoh. Joseph explained, "The dreams mean 7 years of abundance are coming, followed by 7 years of severe famine." Joseph advised Pharaoh to store food during the good years. Pharaoh was amazed by Joseph's wisdom. Immediately, Pharaoh made Joseph ruler over Egypt, second only to himself. The same slave who was once betrayed and imprisoned was now one of the most powerful men in the world. Exactly as Joseph predicted, famine struck the land. Food became scarce everywhere. People from different nations traveled to Egypt to buy grain. Then one day, Joseph's brothers arrived in Egypt, begging for food. But they did not recognize Joseph. Joseph recognized them immediately. The same brothers who sold him as a slave were now bowing before him, just like in the dream years earlier. Joseph tested their hearts to see if they had changed. Eventually, overwhelmed with emotion, Joseph revealed himself. "I am Joseph, your brother." His brothers became terrified, expecting revenge. But Joseph began to cry. Then he said something powerful. "Do not be afraid. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to save many lives." Instead of revenge, Joseph forgave them. He brought his entire family to Egypt and cared for them during the famine. Lessons I learned from this. 1. Betrayal cannot stop God's purpose for your life. 2. God can use pain, rejection, and suffering for a greater purpose. 3. Forgiveness is stronger than revenge. 4. Sometimes your greatest setback becomes the beginning of good things in your life. What lesson do you learn from the story of Joseph?